We are coming out of that commercial break because Peter Murrell has just walked into the Edinburgh High Court, as you can see, where he is due to be sentenced for embezzling funds from the SNP, of course, the party he was previously CEO of, and was, of course, married to the former First Minister of Scotland, Nicola Sturgeon. We are awaiting the arrival now, of course, of the judge, and we'll see the sentencing of Peter Murrell, who was, of course, pled guilty just a few weeks ago, a month or so ago, for embezzling over £400,000 from the party, and he's there on time, and we await that sentencing live now.
It will bring you, of course, the live feed from the Edinburgh High Court as soon as it starts. For Peter Murrell, the former SNP chief executive, former husband, of course, as well, of Nicola Sturgeon, will be sentenced today in that High Court after he was found guilty of embezzling more than £400,000. He used the funds to buy everything ranging from cars, the famous motorhome, to kitchenware and toiletries, and you can see him there entering the court a few moments ago.
Some detectives from Police Scotland and staff involved in the case from the Crown Office are inside the room, as are some journalists as well. And, of course, he is there now with his team. It was a case that everyone was expecting a month ago, but no one thought we'd be at this point so quickly. No one thought he was going to plead guilty, as he did, and they thought there might be more of a drawn-out particular case. We remain to see how long he might be punished for, he might be jailed, or the length of time, and he will be learning that in the coming moments. Under Scottish legal rules, there is no formal sentencing guideline.
Before I come to Mr Scullion,
let's listen in.
Can you update me on where the Crown are in relation to the proceeds of crime proceedings?
Yes, my Lord. When the plea was tendered and moved for confiscation,
Your
Lordship postponed confiscation proceedings until today's date for the preparation of a statement of information. That has now been prepared. I tendered a copy to the court, and a copy has been served.
It's already been served, has it? Thank you. Yeah.
My motion today is to further postpone confiscation proceedings for a period of 12 weeks.
Yeah.
To a first procedural hearing on the 14th of September at Edinburgh, and to ordain the accused to lodge answers in 6 weeks, that being the 3rd of August.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll grant that motion, and there'll be, I think, a period of adjustment for both parties until the 11th of September, so 3 days before the first hearing.
Thank you, Lord.
Thank you. Yes. Now, Mr Scullion.
Lord, I appear again, assisted by Mr Reid.
Yes.
On 25th May, the accused pled guilty to the charge as amended, and on 2nd June, having heard the Crown narrative, your Lordship continued the case for the preparation of a Justice Social Work report, which is now available. The accused appears to have cooperated fully and candidly during that exercise, resulting in a very detailed report, which is thoughtful and measured, and in my submission contains positive information, particularly regarding the accused's attitude to the offence, which I hope is of some assistance to your Lordship in the sentencing exercise. In considering the purposes of sentencing appropriate to this case, in my submission, punishment and an expression of disapproval of the offending behaviour are likely to be at the forefront of your Lordship's considerations. And at the outset of my submissions, I acknowledge that the only appropriate disposal is a custodial sentence, and my submissions in mitigation are made in that context. When interviewed by the author of the report, the accused provided information regarding the circumstances of the commission of the offences, which in my submission is entirely consistent with the Crown narrative. He confirmed that throughout the period of the libel, From his position of trust, he behaved dishonestly and went to considerable lengths to conceal his crimes and avoid detection. He recognises not only the harm caused to those directly affected by his actions, but also the broader societal impact of his dishonesty. It is apparent from the report in my submission that he accepts full responsibility for his actions and does not seek to minimise his culpability in any way, and nor do I. In discussion of the offences, the author of the report confirms that he expresses feelings of guilt and remorse, recognising what he describes as immeasurable psychological, emotional and financial harm to the party and others. In my submission, the accused is now an individual overwhelmed by feelings of embarrassment and shame. Since his arrest on 5th April 2023, he has gradually withdrawn from social contact, and for many months prior to the tendering of his plea, he lived in almost total isolation, at times to the detriment of his health. It is also clear from the report that he recognises that he is entirely to blame for his predicament. He does not seek to avoid or deflect from that conclusion. At present, he does not consider himself worthy of sympathy, acknowledging that not only is a custodial sentence inevitable, but that it is entirely deserved. In selecting the appropriate length of that custodial sentence, your Lordship will have regard to the high degree of culpability and the harm caused, which includes any loss arising from the offences. In mitigation, I invite your Lordship to have regard to his personal circumstances. He is now aged 61. He has no previous convictions or cases outstanding. In my submission, he is someone who has otherwise led a constructive life and has made a positive contribution to society. I think it is also fair to observe that the sentence imposed by this court will only be part of his punishment. His plea of guilty is life-changing. It has ended his career and future career prospects. He has been ostracised by his friends and former colleagues. The nature of many of his purchases, detailed in the narrative and schedules to the indictment, has made him a figure of public ridicule. His humiliation will endure beyond any sentence your Lordship imposes and may prove lifelong. His future beyond custody is uncertain, but presently it appears bleak and solitary. The assessment of the author of the report is that he presents as a minimal risk of reoffending. At the outset, I referred to two of the purposes of sentencing. A further purpose is the opportunity to make amends. The author of the report confirms that the accused recognises that any attempts at atonement in the future may prove futile, but that he wishes to make a start by repaying the sum embezzled. On the last occasion, I informed your Lordship that on 5th June 2024, a restraint order was granted in relation to the accused. The Crown has now confirmed from their investigation of his finances that there will be sufficient funds under his control to repay the sum embezzled. A statement of information under the Proceeds of Crime Act 2002 has now been served, and a timetable for further procedure is now in place.
Can I just be clear, are those funds under his sole control?
That is my understanding from the Crown investigation, my Lord.
Okay.
The Proceeds of Crime Act 2002 prevents this court from imposing compensation at this stage, but in due course during that procedure, any sentence imposed today could be varied to include the imposition of a compensation order. For present purposes, I invite your Lordship to the view that there will be full repayment of the sum embezzled from the restrained property, and to take account of that and the other mitigatory factors identified when selecting the appropriate headline sentence. I invite your Lordship to restrict that sentence as much as your Lordship properly can in the circumstances. Finally, the accused pled guilty at the preliminary hearing. In my submission, his plea of guilty has a significant utilitarian benefit, and I would invite your Lordship to reflect that by affording a discount in terms of Section 196 of the Criminal Procedure Scotland Act 1995. I would also invite your Lordship to backdate any sentence to 26th May, the date he was remanded in custody. Unless there's anything further that I can assist with, those are my submissions.
Can I just check? It's the 26th of May is the backdating date, is it?
Sorry, 25th May. 25th May.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Mr. Scullion. You stand up, please. Peter Murrell, last month you pled guilty to a single charge of embezzlement. You carried out a large number of fraudulent acts over a 12-year period while you were Chief Executive Officer of the Scottish National Party. In total, a sum of just over £400,000 was taken from that organisation, and your offending increased in frequency and in amount over time. As set out in the Criminal Justice Social Work report that I now have, you found yourself unable to stop this offending, and it was only the detection of the crime which brought it to an end. Your actions involved a significant breach of trust to the organisation which you led and to the individual members and donors of that organisation. Because of your position of authority, you were able to circumvent the checks and balances that existed. The manner of the embezzlement, although not particularly sophisticated, included the fabrication of invoices. You gave false information to junior members of staff to input into the accounting system. All told, this was a calculated crime of dishonesty. And let me make it clear to you, one factor in the sentence which I impose today will be to act as a deterrent to any senior officials in other large organisations who might be tempted to abuse their position in the way that you did. On any view, the sum involved in this case was a substantial one, and the period involved was a long time. Now, the author of the Criminal Justice Social Work report sought to explore with you the reasons for your offending. You identified possible factors arising from your background, working life, and personal circumstances. But in truth, it is very difficult to get a clear picture for what drove your actions. Many of the high-value items acquired by you were not even used. And for my purposes today, I think it's sufficient to say that I cannot identify any factors which caused you to offend, which might be considered to be mitigatory factors. Now, I've listened very carefully to everything said on your behalf by Mr. Scullion. You are, of course, a first offender, albeit this indictment covers a lengthy period of time. I acknowledge that you've played an important and committed role within a very successful political party in Scotland, and the public coverage of your downfall will make future employment difficult, if not impossible. The author of the Criminal Justice Social Work report considers that you are not attempting to minimise or excuse your offending in any way. You are described as remorseful, and I accept that. You present a minimal risk of general reoffending according to the risk assessments carried out on you. I'm also told that a full repayment of the sums embezzled can reasonably be expected from your own personal funds and I shall proceed on that basis. Now, you pled guilty to this charge at an early stage. I'm told that in early March, shortly after this indictment was served, you gave instructions to your legal advisors to discuss a potential plea with the Crown. Proceedings of that for a period in this case, it is understandable that the Crown and your legal advisors required time for that process to be followed through. By pleading guilty at the preliminary hearing, there is a significant benefit to the judicial system by the avoidance of a lengthy and complex criminal trial, which would have lasted many weeks, and I shall accordingly make the appropriate reduction to the headline sentence in accordance with Section 196 of the 1995 Act. Turning now to that sentence. If you had been found guilty of this charge after trial, I would have imposed a sentence of 7 years imprisonment. Having pled guilty at the preliminary hearing, I impose a sentence of 5 years, 3 months imprisonment. I shall backdate that sentence to the 25th of May 2026, when you're first remanded in custody. That is all.
And there goes Peter Murrell, the former chief exec of the Scottish National Party, sentenced to a custodial sentence of 5 years and 3 months, backdated to the 25th of May of this year. That 5-year custodial sentence reduced as a result of his earlier guilty plea. But the breaking news this hour, live here on Sky News, former chief executive of the Scottish National Party has been jailed for 5 years and 3 months for embezzlement. The figure, £400,310.65. Money stolen over the course of 12 years, from August 2010 until October 2022. The judge there at Edinburgh High Court saying many of the items that were used and purchased with that embezzled money were not actually used. Everything from computer games to toilet seats through to £124,500 for a motorhome that sat on Peter Murrell's mother's drive. It has been a story that has gripped Scottish politics, that has gripped the SNP, that has led to his former marriage to the SNP leader breaking apart. And of course, it is said there that Nicola Sturgeon had no knowledge and has been completely exonerated by the procedures and also the investigation that went ongoing. Let's bring in our Scotland correspondent, Conor Gillis, who's following this case. And Conor, the figure there, we finally know it, 5 years, 3 months in prison for Peter Murrell.
That's right, 5 years, 3 months for what has been the biggest political scandal in Scotland. At the centre of it, the man who led Scotland's largest political party as the chief executive officer for 2 decades. His wife was Nicola Sturgeon from 2010 onwards. The pair shared a home on the outskirts of Glasgow. They were the biggest power political couple here in Scotland during that time, and I've just come out of that court here in Edinburgh. Peter Murrell was shackled to those prison officers and was led in cuffs and was learning his fate for this, a series of crimes spanning more than a decade. And it took forensic financial experts from law enforcement, from policing and from other agencies here in Scotland, banking experts as well, to unravel, to unpick what Peter Murrell was up to over such a long period of time. And in the end, they were able to convict him. He ended up pleading guilty to £400,000 of embezzlement, funds that he stole from the SNP's coffers, funding and finances, money that had come in from donations from party members across the country who thought their money was going towards the cause of a second Scottish independence referendum. Well, in fact, it absolutely wasn't. It never was. Peter Murrell was siphoning off that cash and bankrolling this lifestyle that he simply couldn't afford. And it was an extraordinary set of purchases, a shopping list of more than 1,000 purchases over that time. The biggest ticket item was, of course, that £125,000 motorhome that sat on his mother's driveway in Fife, about 10 miles up the road from where we are here just now, 4 miles on the clock. He tried to suggest that that was going to be for party campaigning, for party activities. Well, clearly there was no intention of that from Peter Murrell's perspective. He actually, furnished that motorhome with luxury bathroom items, Molton Brown, soaps and the like. And clearly, in the days after buying that £125,000 motorhome, he also bought inspirational journey books for tours across the whole of Scotland, England, Wales and Ireland as well. There was never an intention, the prosecution said, to use that for party use. But his purchases didn't stop there. You know, he also bought an £80,000 Jaguar, pocketing some of the cash when he sold that. He was buying watches, he was buying salt and pepper grinders that were £2,000-3,000 a pop there as well. A robotic lawnmower seized from his home, that was £3,000. The list is absolutely endless. Amazon purchases. He was a prolific offender, a prolific purchaser when it came to Amazon online purchases as well. Many of those items being delivered to the home that he shared with Nicola Sturgeon on the outskirts of Glasgow. The scene, the central focus of this inquiry was, of course, the tent that was erected on the pair's lawn when police raided that in 2023, the day that he found himself in police custody, answering questions and returning most of that interview with no comment. Now, this here in the court in Edinburgh was the first chance, the first time that we have heard from his defence KC as part of this, and there was some pretty frank admissions. We were trying to understand why Peter Murrell did this in the first place, why he thought he would get away with it. Well, his defence KC said he behaved dishonestly and he went to considerable lengths to conceal his crimes, because let's remember, he was creating fake invoices. He was able to circumvent the system because he was chief executive. He says that the purchases and the long list of purchases have made him a figure of public ridicule, jailing him for 5 years and 3 months. The judge said this was a significant breach of trust to the party and to their donors, and these were calculated crimes of dishonesty. Now, the police here in Scotland have held a briefing with journalists that lasted around an hour and a half, and they talked about 516 witness statements that were taken as part of this. And no doubt over the course of today here on Sky News, we will tell you more on that. Peter Murrell, just finally, his lawyer has said that he will repay the full amount of £400,000 that he stole from the SNP, and there will be a hearing to that effect coming in September.
Connor joining us live outside Edinburgh High Court. More from you in a few moments' time. For the moment, thank you. And the judge, Lord Young, describing the actions as a calculated crime of dishonesty. You found yourself unable to stop this offending. It was only the detection of the crime which brought it to an end. Your actions involved a significant breach of trust to the organisation which you led and to the individual members and donors of that organisation because of your position of authority. The breaking news this hour, the former chief exec of the SNP jailed for 5 years, 3 months for embezzling more than £400,000 of the party's funds. The details to come with me, Gareth Barlow, after the break.